Thanks so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to have you here. Just how the process is going to go today, we've got Mike from our consulting team. He's going to be asking the questions.
Okay.
So we'll be taking some notes as he does so, and just feel free to roll through that. We may have some follow-up questions. I'll ask the council after each set of questions if they do have any follow-ups, and then we'll kind of go from there.
That sounds great. I'm
All right.
ready.
Mike, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Ally. Congratulations on making it here today and
Thank you
being
so
part of
much
the
for
process.
having me.
So the first question set, block of questions that we have is relating to budget.
Okay.
So the first question is fiscal management expertise is critical to the function of this role. What are your skills in this area and what techniques have you followed to manage the municipal funds effectively?
Sure. So our biggest task, right, is to make sure we provide quality services with limited resources. My experience in budgeting, I guess right now I manage kind of the compensation and benefits budget. So that's about 5-6 million, kind of depending on what we're doing that year in the IT budget. If I were to manage a whole budget, I'd do it similarly. Right now is kind of when it kicks off. The audit has just finished. You see where you end the previous year. So I'd probably, if I were here, I'll just talk about if I were here and what I've done in the past. I like to meet with department heads individually, get kind of their needs and their wants, get a list going, kind of get a high level, levy increase. What are we looking at for just general operations here? We looking at 5% for the year? We looking at 3%? Are we doing a lot this year, hiring some staff? Are we, doing a big project and, we're looking at a 10%? And then I'd like to come to the council and say, here's kind of what we're thinking. What's your response to that? Do we need to get that lower? Are you looking to do a lot more, get it higher? And then from there, obviously, the prelim levy needs to be approved by the end of September. So really work through those general fund departmental budgets using the previous year's actuals, get that prelim levy approved. And then throughout the fall is the time where you narrow down those enterprise funds, any special revenue funds, and kind of firm up the levy to be an acceptable increase for the services you're providing, an acceptable increase for the residents. What's the tax burden on them? And also during that time, if there are any fees that need to be adjusted, I know you guys have talked about sewer fees, do some analysis on that. And ultimately carry it to the finish line, get the budget approved. And then a budget's only a budget unless you follow it. So next year, that's where it really matters, sticking to the budget. Or if you don't, why aren't you? So, and I would really leave, the department heads should know their budget by now. I know you have a lot of long-standing department heads, so they're there to manage their budget. I'm not there to micromanage how they spend money, but I'm there to provide support if they need, or if a piece of equipment breaks that you didn't see coming, how do we fund that? Hopefully there's some in the reserves. So that would be kind of my process for budgeting.
Follow-up questions? Okay, we're good.
All right.
Mike?
Under conflict resolution, can you tell us about a time when you had to navigate a division in your board over an issue? And what was the issue and what was your role? And did you bring a consensus or did you just stay out of the issue?
Staying out of the issue typically isn't an option for an administrator, as you know. Let me just think of this just happened this year, actually. We had a council member and a commissioner, kind of long story, they don't agree. Had a planning commission meeting, the planning commissioner had said something derogatory, no one heard it, but the council member heard it, said something derogatory in the meeting. Council member was understandably fired up about it. She wanted to remove the commissioner from the commission. My job was to see what the best option moving forward was, probably going on a witch hunt and kicking off a commissioner who's well-liked on the commissioner isn't the best role. So how do we kind of come up with a compromise that reaches our end goal, right, is to have appropriate conduct at a council meeting. That's the goal, right? So we met with our city attorney, the mayor, and this council member. I proposed that we come up with a code of conduct that, we don't have in place. A lot of cities do. So under that guise, council's in a great place. This is a good time to adopt a code of conduct if there are any issues. Then it kind of gives you a mechanism to follow if the issue arises again. Thankfully, it hasn't, but we actually have that on consent on Monday. So the code of conduct will be approved. If the behavior by this commissioner continues, then we have some actions to take. But I think it, long-term will help the council member not save face, but kind of keep the toxic behavior at a minimum. And for everybody, really, it's a good just policy to have, so.
Follow-up questions on that one? No? Okay. Mike?
All right, under community involvement, can you give me an example of how you make your direct reports feel a sense of inclusion, belonging on a daily basis?
Sure, I love this question. I think this is where, my experience is in a lot of HR, a lot of communication, a lot of HR, a lot of project management, and through that, I can speak about the more formal ways. Obviously, departmental meetings, making sure everyone's on the same page. Not interested in siloing departments, being a gatekeeper of any information, being a gatekeeper from the council to staff. If you have a question about roads, call the public works guy. If you got a question about elections, call the city clerk. I'm here, obviously, to be kind of that hub of information. So departmental meetings, I think, are important. All staff meetings to make sure, it's not just the department heads who are the boots on the ground. It's also the maintenance workers and the police officers. So all staff meetings. But I think what's really important and what can be missing in an administrator is the informal connection. My door's open. You can come talk to me about anything. We'll try and figure out a solution to your problem. I think it builds trust. It breeds loyalty. And same with council members. If you guys have an idea, an issue, bring it to me. I'm all ears. Whether it's an issue that needs to be dealt with now, dealt with later. But I think it's more the informal connection. I know when my staff has to leave for their daughter's soccer game. I know if someone's going through a rough time. I think that's really important. Yes, meetings are important, and but it's really like, hey, you guys can come talk to me about anything. I want to keep an open line of communication.
Okay, additional follow-up here question under community involvement. What do you see as the most challenging aspect of working with a diverse group of people who may as well be seasonal residents? And what steps have you taken to meet these challenges in the past?
Yeah, so that's more community-based, right? We have albeit larger community where I currently work. We are a lake community, so we have the snowbirds that come in over the summer, leave during the winter. We have people who have lived there and have farms operated on 20 acres for 80 years, and we have residents who live in our apartment building. So, we have experience from, I got a call about chickens the other day, to we need to think about serving water to our future development that is 400 homes, So I think transparency is so huge. Communities, the public, that's all they want. They want to be in the know. They just want to know what you're doing, know what their taxpayer dollars are going towards. So communication, transparency is key. I do all the communication to the public where I currently am. So I've implemented newsletters, text alerts, website. Even on the back of our utility bills, we have messages. So transparency is really key when you're talking about public.
Follow-up questions on any of those two? Okay.
All right, under the umbrella of economic development, can you discuss your experience with grant writing and managing the grant application process and securing alternate funding sources?
Sure. I think my most impactful, because you can write grants all day, right? But did you get it? My most impactful one back in 2021, COVID kind of uncovered when people started working from home that they don't have adequate internet service. And we're talking probably 2,000 residents don't have adequate internet service. I'm fielding the calls, council's fielding the calls about their dial-up internet service. They made it a priority during our strategic planning to build out adequate internet to these homes. Obviously, that's not cheap. I think we were quoted $3 million to build out the whole city. And so during this time, obviously, a local entity, really any municipality, has COVID dollars, whether CARES funds or ARPA dollars. I had realized that the county had some. Talked to the county commissioner, asked if they wanted or if they could support us in this endeavor. Got $500,000 from them. We did a local match with our CARE funds. We got Midco on board. They're the internet provider. We were able to build out 500 homes during that project. And that's just getting the grant, right? That's the easy part almost, is getting it through council. You guys approve, but okay, now project's implementing. This is impacting residents. This is disrupting their right-of-way. This is, this is people's lawns they care about, and how do you communicate that to the residents? So, making sure there's adequate communication going out, door hangers on website, and people are excited for this too, which is, we're not ripping up their lawn for no reason. And also, I'm still troubleshooting yards that were ripped up last year, making sure they're restored. Residents are happy. And so, yeah, I would say that was my most impactful one in terms of grant writing.
Any follow-up to that? Okay, we're good now.
All right, under the umbrella of human resources, the city has experienced leadership changes in the last several months and is dedicated to establishing a stable and healthy working environment. How would you approach promoting a collaborative culture and a healthy organizational culture?
Sure. Probably that would be my first course of action, really. We're talking first day. I'm meeting with staff. What do you need? Where's the gap? Where are you stressing out? Are you, really figure out that gap, listen to staff, soak it in, and assess, what kind of help do they really need? And where are the gaps in my expertise, right? I'm no community development director. Do we need that? Do we need just a city planner? Does the office staff need help up front, and how much does that cost? So really taking into consideration with the current staff, they've been here long enough. They know where the gaps are in, services. As far as stability, I guess I'll go on a little personal note. I grew up in a small town, Malacca. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. My dad was city administrator for about 20 years while I was growing up. My first job was Madison Lake throughout my undergrad and master's, and I was there for all of that. I did a short stint in Savage, but I loved it. Moved to Minnetrista, and my husband's dream has always been to be up here. This is where we want to be. This is where we want to plant roots, and I'm sure, as you guys know, there's been a lot of jobs open up here. I've done my research. I haven't applied to any of them. I'm not just trying to get any job. I'm trying to get this one. We want to plant roots here in the area. I have family in the area. You guys seem like you have a really solid team, which is really hard to come by. So as far as stability, I was telling Mike, this isn't a stepping stone for me. These communities are tough. Typically, you either see people early in their career, looking 2-year stint and then something bigger, or you're looking for someone towards the end to retire at. This isn't a stepping stone. This is the stone. I'm ready to plant some roots, raise kids here, and be around my family here, make an impact on your community and you guys and the staff. So as far as stability, stable is my middle name.
Any follow-ups? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right, let's talk a little bit about project management now.
Sure.
Okay, tell us about your experience in developing a community strategic plan with your elected officials for a 5- and 10-year community roadmap and the vision for the future.
Sure. So we do this in typically February. We like to do it early in the year. Our process has been to send out to the council members and to the staff, what are your top, prioritize your top 8 goals. When they start to overlap with each other, you're, okay, this is a goal of the community. Narrow it down to, 5, 6 goals, kind of depending on it. Are public safety services important to you? Are you looking to increase your community engagement? Are you looking to retain and recruit people? Are you looking to have a better pavement maintenance plan. You know, what are your goals? From there, narrow it down and that's what kind of feeds your budget process, right? Every decision, every action you make really is feeding into your strategic plan that you've created. So I'd like to wrap that up. I mean, if I am here, I'd like to also see what that is. Like, what are your guys' goals here? What are your expectations of me? You know, what do you want me to execute for you? So that's been our process. That's kind of the bedrock of the budget. It's the bedrock of what we're all working towards here. And then, you know, a strategic plan typically is, you know, 3 to 5 years. And then also what's long term? You know, how are these actions leading towards something bigger? And what does that look like? Sure, we're going to replace a road next year, but how are you going to maintain it in 7 years? You know, when does it need a mill and overlay? When does, you know, what other roads need to be constructed on top of that? That's getting a little more technical, but that would be my plan that is how I've done strategic planning.
Okay.
Follow-ups? Good right now.
Okay, working relationships umbrella. What experience do you have with coordinating the development, financing, and implementing of capital projects and improvements within your organization and with other governmental agencies?
Well, I kind of speak to the one with the county. I did obtain some funding through deed as well. I would say as far as, can you read that one more time for me,
Sure
please?
thing. What experience do you have in coordinating the coordinating the development, financing, and implementation of capital projects and improvements within your organization and with or other organizational agencies?
Sure. From what I've heard from your public works director and kind of your staff is you have a lot of big coals in the fire that have been planned for a long time. I know there's a big road project. I took a look at the road CIP. It seems to be pretty robust and a good CIP. So the planning has almost been done. You almost need to just now take it to the finish line on a few of these. And how do we do that? As far as capital improvement, what I have done, I've been in charge of, like I said, our compensation and benefits budget. That's not capital, but also our IT budget. We had to replace a lot of expensive equipment, some servers. So planning for that in 2020, starting to put money away. For now, we actually just did all of those IT projects at the end of 2024. So planning is the most important piece of that, but also executing the plan you set in place. And I know as councils turn over, staff can turn over, and funding can sometimes be used for its unintended purposes, you know, back when a council started planning for it in 2020. But hopefully we've been talking about stability and, you know, these plans are in place, and I'm there to help move these towards the finish line, regardless of the elected officials or staff, some continuity throughout the next, you know, to meet your goals in 10 years. That's the whole point of capital improvement.
Follow-ups? Next, Mike.
All right. What processes or procedures do you follow to effectively communicate with the mayor, council, and board members? And how do you keep them informed to avoid the infamous surprise?
Well, I think if I were to come in here, I'd love to meet with all of you one-on-one, see what your preferred communication style is. Do you prefer a text? Do you want a phone call? Do you want an email? And for me, I'm available for you guys. You got an idea? Bring it to me. You got a concern? Bring it to me. I'm also not gatekeeping staff. If you got a concern, bring it to them. But what I've typically done is, you know, send out the packet. That has all the technical information, right? But then set up a call with you guys if you have questions on the packet. If you have questions that require a little bit more staff research, it kind of is the other way too. I don't like to be surprised in council meetings. It does me no good to be blindsided by council. Not that you would do that, but we've had that, you know, the gotchas at the meeting that I can't effectively give you, you know, an informed answer unless I know what it is. So very much keep an open line of communication. But there's also a lot of issues that can be handled by staff. So I'd hope to kind of, you know, I hope we would build the trust where you can trust me to handle some issues as well. Not everything needs to rise to the council level, when it does, I'm happy to bring that forward. But I'd hope we'd build a relationship where you can trust me to kind of make the day-to-day calls, actions, decisions. So that would probably be my course of action.
All right. Final question before you get to ask your question.
Okay.
What is the hardest thing a city administrator has to do?
That is a tough one. Okay, let me start with the technical side, right? Technical side of being a city administrator is providing quality services with the resources you have. That's it. That's what you're trying to do technically. I think what is difficult and why this position, I've done these searches, what's so hard to find is a person who can manage people, who can manage the staff, who can manage the community, who can manage the council, who can keep a cool head, who can have good instincts, good judgment calls, build trust, build rapport. That's what really is, no one teaches you in school, right? Anyone can learn how to put a CIP together. Anyone can learn the daily tasks. But who can manage and reach your goals with a team intact? And you guys have a really strong one. With your team intact, your council intact, and everyone's on the same page. So not that that's a hard part for me, but it's difficult in this position, and something you're not really aware of until you're in it is that part. But technically, yes, it's difficult to provide great services with a limited budget. And yes, answering phone calls from residents is difficult. But what's really the key, I think, to success for the community is getting someone to steer the ship that you trust, that knows that your people trust, that you guys trust. That's the toughest thing to find. And yeah. Hopefully that answers your question.
Any other follow-up questions?
Yeah, just one question. How do you handle interaction with local businesses in the community?
Oh, yeah. In Minnetrista, we don't have a whole lot of commercial development. We have two, we actually just have a grocery store. But one of my first tasks here would be to go out and meet people in the community. And not necessarily business owners, but kind of heavy hitters. Who are people listening to? What do I need to know? I've often contacted our business owners. We do a lot of community events where they sponsor it. Just get out and get to know them. They know this community better than I do at this point. So just kind of be a sponge of information, meet with the community. The resorts, obviously a big thing. I would love to meet with people at the resort, see how we can help each other. How do we work together? Because obviously they're an asset to the community and we're an asset to them. So how do we kind of work together? But I hope to be a very present figure. People know me, right? I don't want to be some inaccessible, figurehead behind a screen. I'm happy to run up to the store and know who is working, who owns it, and they know me. So very involved. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Any other follow-ups? All right, now it's your turn.
Uh-oh. I've learned so much from your staff. What are you guys looking for? I think I have a grasp what the staff is looking for. What are you guys looking for as your leader of the, of the staff and the community?
Well, I would say that I'll allow the council to just kind of talk themselves. So I'll start with Councilmember Maroney.
Sure.
You were looking lonely down there, so I thought I'd kind of.
that's great.
Did you turn your mic off?
No, I turned it on.
Oh,
turn it on.
I was like, oh no, what's he gonna say?
I'll speak on my behalf, and either they can agree or disagree. But I think we're looking for that team lead that I think you touched on a lot of aspects is a team player, not a team leader. And making sure daily interactions are good, staff is up to date, council's up to date, open communication styles. Mr. Jensen touched on it with the business community, making sure we're doing outreaches, making sure that's good. We did have a great communication program. We had a changeover of staff. We want to bring that back. I think when the communication was going out to the public, things were good. And you touched on the transparency piece.
Yeah.
That is something that we just need to bring back, and with the changeovers that we've had, it's hard to come by at this
Yeah.
point. And I'll turn it over to somebody else for some additional comments.
Well, I'll add on to that. I think from my perspective, engagement. And what I mean by that, engagement on all levels. And that engagement on different ways, communication, involvement, team player, you heard that. We're very big into that. I think open dialogue with all levels, whether it's the council, whether it's the staff, whether it's the community. How do we all work together as a big team? We're a part of a larger community as well. So we're 26, 50, whatever it is, close to 2,700 people.
Yeah.
But we're not. You look around us. We got Cross Lake up the road. We got Pequot Lakes down the road. We got Nisswa. How do we play a role in that larger community?
Sure.
So I think there's challenges at times too, as a city. How do we move that forward, and having an administrator that understands the big picture, not just what's happening within our city, what's going on outside of our city, and how do we then work together with them? We have a fire district now between us and Pequot Lakes. It's a new venture, but that's going to continue to move forward. So I would say communication, engagement, a face. You made a good point about, not just stand behind the walls. Excellent. Get out in the community, engage. That's what we want. We want somebody who's going to be involved with the community, putting that on as well. So I think echo a lot of what Councilmember Maroney said, but that in my mind, that's what really rings in my head, is that engagement concept of working with everybody and being that person that kind of is, you're managing all that. And that's a big ask, but that in my mind is the ask. So.
Great.
I think Councilmember Maroney and Mayor Rogenkamp covered, it quite well, but the communication and engagement is incredibly important. What we were missing before was staff had no voice. There really wasn't communication, and you've touched on it, and we have a very talented staff that is quite capable at doing their jobs. And as a council member, I don't know what the day-to-day operations are. They do. Their voices need to be heard. And I very much like the responses and your approach to get that done. To kind of piggyback on Councilmember Maroney's, the communication with this community is incredibly important. Nextdoor, for whatever reason, that's a very popular app in this community, can be good or bad, but it's an effective way to communicate with people. Residents don't like surprises. We all know, the levies, and I think you touched on it quite eloquently. How do we provide that quality of service with limited resources? That's, at the end of the day, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and just to kind of, not to interrupt you, but audits get posted, and sometimes that's all that gets posted, right? That's not I don't even know how to read an audit. How do you make it digestible?
Correct.
How do you get to the nuts and bolts of what we're doing? How much of your dollar is public safety? How much of it is public works? How much of it is staffing? I think that's what residents care about. Where's this money going? Okay, that's how much you're spending, but where's it going is important.
Well, and I think tax statements, everybody focuses on the total, not,
Right.
This is the cities,
Yeah,
this is
right.
what we
Here's
have
the
control. I
portion.
mean, it's human nature.
Yeah.
It's cumulative. Well,
Yeah.
my taxes went up this much. Well, you have the school district, you have the county,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you
then
also
just send out
have
a
the
little
city.
mailer. What does this statement mean? How much goes to the school district? How much goes to
Correct.
the city? And what does that, that provides you all with fire service. Once people hear that, you're like, oh, that's actually not too, people are reasonable for the most part.
Sure.
They just want to be in the know. They want to know what's going on, what their money's going to. I do too, in my community where I live. So,
That's all I have.
Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, I think mine are going to be already sort of repeating what's been said. Sort of that build cohesion amongst the staff and the council. So sort of as a team, not necessarily as a micromanager.
Yeah.
The communication, I just made a note of. We had sort of started newsletters. Those have obviously stopped now at this point, but a lot of the issues that have come up in like probably the past 2 or 3 years have been mostly centered around communication, I think, and maybe the lack of it to residents. So I think that is very important. And then we have a lot of projects, so just sort of help in moving all those forward because there's many things behind that.
Yeah.
So just, I think some of the projects, they move almost too slowly in government.
Yeah, you
We've
guys-
talked about does move slowly.
Right.
But
you guys have been in like a holding pattern, right, for a little
Yeah.
bit. You just need
Yes.
someone to kind of
Yeah.
execute. You know, you can plan and plan and plan, but yeah.
yeah,
I hear
some of
that.
them we need to just get off the plate, move into implementation so we
Get
can
it to the finish line.
tackle other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You heard the theme, communication.
I do.
So, and that's we're a big advocate of that, and we think it's really super important on all levels.
Right.
And I'm also big in education. It's my background. So educating the people is a constant, ongoing task that the city has. But I also have an old adage that I always like to say, and you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So we can put as much as we want in front of them, but that's still our job
Right.
to do that. And then whether they absorb it or take it on, at least we can have it there and say, here it is. So I think that's really important. So
Yeah. I
other
concur.
questions?
Not really. I've learned a lot from
Yeah.
you guys and
Great.
from your staff. And
Okay.
I know these processes can be grueling, and now it's your second one. I just thank you for taking the time. These can be long days. So
Yep.
it was a pleasure meeting you all, and I appreciate the time taken to meet me.
All right. Thank you, Ally. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you. And just a little heads up, we have some more interviews today. Well, once we conclude those, we'll be entering some deliberations and doing some discussions, and we're hoping in the next day or two to make a decision. So we'll work through Mike, our consultant, and that's the route we'll go. So one way or the other, you'll be hearing from us either way. But we thank you again for your time today. And wish you safe travels back home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wish you guys the best of luck if it's not me. I hope you're successful in all of
Thank
your
you.
projects.
Thank you.